Welcome to PeaceTV. Today we bring you with the following main content.
Large Russian army is stronger than before the start of the war with Ukraine. Russia encircled Ukraine at Bakhmut, controlling fire on the last supply line. NATO announced the number of tanks and armor that have aided Ukraine. Ukraine is too hot. Hastily counterattacked Ukraine's defense minister. Ukraine's prime minister says Zelensky's call is opening a new stage of cooperation. The head of NATO welcomed Zelensky's call, but noted that China has not yet condemned the Russian invasion. Here are the details.
While Russia has suffered thousands of losses in its war against Ukraine, a senior US military commander in Europe told lawmakers Wednesday that they have plenty more firepower left in their arsenal. General Christopher Cavalli, commander of the US European Command, told the House Armed Services Committee Russian ground forces have been somewhat degraded as a result of this conflict. Although this force is larger today than it was at the beginning of the conflict, their force lost very little. They lost 80 planes. They have 1,000 more fighters and bombers, he said. The Navy has lost a ship. Secret military documents believed to have been leaked for months by a newly enlisted National Guard pilot provide an overall picture of where Russia's ground forces are engaged in the war. A document dated February and March states that 527 of Russia's 544 available battalions took part in the war against Ukraine. 474 of them were in the country, intelligence said. One document also estimates that between 35,000 and 43,000 Russian troops were killed in the conflict. Those losses have been particularly heavy lately in the fighting around Bakhmut. On Tuesday, a spokesman for the Eastern Group of the Armed Forces of Ukraine said that Russia is concentrating all of its forces on Bakhmut, and in fact is not conducting such intense combat operations in the region anywhere else in our operating area. In March, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff General Mark Milley told lawmakers that the Russian military was being slaughtered in the fight for Bakhmut for about 21 days. The Russians have not made any progress in and around Bakhmut, so it's a carnival for the Russians. Milley said they are being attacked in the vicinity of Bakhmut and the Ukrainians have fought very well. However, those losses appear to be only a small part of Russia's total military force. When asked about Russian submarine patrols in the Atlantic, Cavalli said that the majority of the Russian military was not negatively affected by the invasion of Ukraine. Russia is more active than we've seen in years, and its patrols in the Atlantic and across the Atlantic are at a high level. Most of the time at a higher level than we've seen in a year, he said, and this, as you pointed out, despite all the efforts they are making inside Ukraine. All of this comes as the US and partner countries prepare for a spring counterattack by Ukrainian forces. Leaked documents paint a pessimistic view of American confidence, saying that Russia could soon gain air superiority and that Ukraine's medium-range air defense system will be completely reduced by May 23rd. Documents dated February and March this year detail a number of shortcomings in the Ukrainian military, predicting that the conflict will eventually lead to a stalemate between the two sides. But on Wednesday, Cavalli appeared to offer a different assessment. According to the pattern that we have worked very carefully with them, the Ukrainians are in a good position, he said. They have some weaknesses that I don't want to talk about in public, but we are confident of their surprise and the like, of course. We worked with them on all of that. They have some weaknesses that I don't want to talk about in public, but we are confident of their surprise and the like, of course. We worked with them on all of that, Donetsk separatist leader Denis Pushilin said on April 27th that Russian forces had put Ukraine's last supply line in Bakhmut under fire control. The passage in the Kromovo area has been completely controlled by fire. This is the last supply route, however. The enemy is still able to move even under shelling. Ukraine has lost reserves along the route, Pushilin said in a live broadcast on Russia 24 TV channel. He added that some units of the Ukrainian army are trying to avoid moving on the main roads by crossing fields. According to him, Russia is still trying to push Ukraine out of Bakhmut but the Kiev side is still entrenched in the area of high-rise apartment buildings. Within a radius of 1 to 1.5 kilometers to the west of the city, Bakhmut has witnessed a fierce battle between Russia and Ukraine over the past several months. Last week, Yen Gagin, an advisor to Mr. Pushilin, said that Russian forces controlled nearly 90% of Bakhmut territory and were encircling Ukrainian forces in this pan of fire. Ukraine has not commented on the information Mr. Pushilin provided. Yesterday, Ukraine announced that it was sending more elite forces to Bakhmut, blocking to Russian attacks in this direction. Currently, Russian regular forces and private military force member Wagner are conducting non-stop attacks on Bakhmut. Russia claims that if it captures Bakhmut, it will penetrate deep into eastern Ukraine, apparently targeting the cities of Kramatorsk and Slavyansk. Meanwhile, Ukraine is determined to stick around in this city and believe that the Battle of Bakhmut is causing Russia to lose its top elite soldiers, according to information from the battlefield. Both sides are suffering heavy losses. In a related development, Pushilin said today, Ukraine has begun to carry out counterattacks in the Ugleda region, but Russian forces have prevented and continued to maintain momentum in this direction. Mr. Pushilin said that the Russian Air Force had eliminated a number of Ukrainian strongholds. The situation is tense, but still under control. Located southwest of Donetsk, Ugleda was a major logistics hub for resupplying Ukrainian units along the direction of Mariinka, another fierce front in the Donbass. Russia has sent forces to fortify positions in the southern and eastern regions of Ugleda. Meanwhile, the Russian military announced on April 27 that it destroyed 4 Ukrainian S-300 missile launches and Gepard surface-to-air missile systems in the Kherson region in the past 24 hours. Yesterday, the Lancet drone strikes destroyed 4 S-300 launches and the Gepard complex, leaving 14 Ukrainian soldiers out of action and injuring 10 others, the statement said. At night, Russian artillery fire near the settlement of Olgovka destroyed a 120mm mortar, costing Ukraine 5 soldiers. NATO Secretary General announced that the alliance has delivered 230 tanks and 1,550 armor to Ukraine, almost all of the combat vehicles as committed. At a press conference on April 27th, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said that NATO member countries trained and equipped about 9 new Ukrainian armoured tank brigades. This will give Ukraine the strength to continue to regain the areas that Russia controls, Stoltenberg said. We have delivered to Ukraine more than 98% of the promised vehicles, including more than 1,550 armor, 230 tanks and other equipment and a large amount of ammunition, Secretary General Stoltenberg confirmed. Earlier, General Christopher Cavalli, commander of US Forces Europe Command EUCOM on April 26, also said that the West has handed over more than 98% of tanks and armor to Ukraine is committed. However, advisor to the President of Ukraine Mikhailo Podolyak denied the information, saying that 98% is too big a number. Podolyak said Ukraine lacked ammunition, especially for large caliber artillery, and called on the West to transfer more weapons and equipment. According to Podolyak, the current speed of weapons supply allows the Ukrainian army to carry out certain operations on the front lines. Ukraine can never have enough weapons and equipment in the face of an opponent like Russia. Podolyak said dozens of Western countries have provided arms or pledged nearly $60 billion in military aid to Ukraine, with the United States leading the way with a total of more than $35.4 billion in support packages. Ukraine recently received the British Challenger to main tank and the German-made Leopard to main tank. Michael Kaufman, an expert at the US-based Center for Naval Research, said the West had managed to overcome the logistical challenge of getting the weapons and ammunition to Ukraine. However, transferring these weapons and ammunition to Ukrainian units on the front lines is a completely different matter. Ukrainian Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal said the phone call between Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping was very productive and could open a new phase. In cooperation between the two countries, this conversation will certainly usher in a new phase of our cooperation and relationship with the Republic of China, said Schmiel. I am sure this is a very good start for the development of our future relationships, he added. We have our own way to peace, Zelensky's formula. Schmiel said when asked to comment on China's role as a mediator in possible peace talks with Russia, we completely understand what liberating Ukraine is. All territories within the 1991 border must be freed. Security must be ensured by international structures. Only in this case can we be sure of a stable, just and lasting peace, he said. Xi and Zelensky spoke by phone on Wednesday. In their first known conversation since Russia invaded Ukraine, meanwhile, Moscow has responded to the conversation by saying it welcomes all contacts that could end the conflict. We are ready to welcome anything that can accelerate the end of the conflict in Ukraine and achieve all Russia's goals. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov told journalists on Thursday, when informed, asked about the call. He added that communication between the two leaders is a sovereign issue for China and Ukraine. The head of NATO welcomed Xi Zelensky's call, but noted that China has not yet condemned the Russian invasion. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg on Thursday said he welcomed the phone call between Chinese President Xi Jinping and his Ukrainian counterpart Volodymyr Zelensky on Wednesday, but noted that Beijing has yet to condemn the invasion. Russian strategy. I welcome the phone call between President Zelensky and President Xi. I think it's also important that China better understand Ukraine's position. This does not change the fact that China has not been able to condemn Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine, Stoltenberg told a news conference in Luxembourg. He added that NATO allies have expressed strong support for President Zelensky's peace plan, including, of course, full respect for Ukraine's territorial integrity. Xi and Zelensky spoke by phone on Wednesday. In their first known conversation since Russia invaded Ukraine, Zelensky, who has long expressed a desire to speak with Xi, said he had a long and meaningful phone call with the Chinese leader that lasted an hour. We have fully discussed current issues of bilateral relations. We pay special attention to possible ways of cooperation to establish a just and lasting peace for Ukraine, Zelensky said in a statement. There can be no peace at the expense of territorial compromises, Zelensky said in a reading. China's foreign ministry quoted Xi as telling Zelensky that mutual respect for sovereignty and territorial integrity is the political basis of China-Ukraine relations. Xi also reiterated Beijing's position that China's core position in the Ukraine conflict is promoting peace and negotiation.